Hey, what's going on everybody? Today we have the Augment guide for patch 13.16. This is going to be focused more on the early game as per usual, but we have all the other augments listed as well. But the notes and stuff, it's mainly for stage 2, because stage 2 is the most important point in the game, and if you pick the wrong augment, you just waste like 30 minutes of your life. Actually 20 minutes because you go 8th, and then you could count more. Maybe it turns into 60 minutes because you have to win a game afterwards to make up for the lost LP. But we did make some improvements to this guide from last time because I've heard a lot of feedback and people were saying like, hey, add the description to the augments. So that's what I did this week. Let's just get right into this. So in silver augments, it hasn't really changed that much. Best ones are still inconsistency and blood money. Both of these give like a ton of money, and as a silver augment, it just gives so much gold. You like compare it to other augments, it's pretty much like almost a gold augment. It could probably be like a mediocre gold augment, especially blood money. Blood money gives like so much gold, it's insane. If you just lose streak with it, yeah, you'll be like fast 8 at like stage 4 or something like that, or like, yeah, 4-1 you could like hit level 8 and have like 40 or 50 gold to roll with, something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. Combine that with something like a Piltover, and then you're just like guaranteed first place pretty much. Inconsistency is still pretty good. 2 bonus gold every single turn. When is that ever bad? The added benefit is that you don't have to grief yourself to kind of keep your streak up, so you don't have to full open for it if you're lose streaking. You don't have to level up preemptively if you're win streaking. So it's just overall very good. Unified resistance, A tier still good. Misconnections, that one's for later on, still decent. Young, wild, and free, the best on stage 3, still decent on stage 2. Cybernetic bulk, it's all right. Silver spoon, very good. This one's very high value because you just get like 10 XP. Gold's better than XP, but you know what? Silver spoon's as close as it's gonna get because the XP early just means you get more interest earlier on, which hopefully leads to more gold later on too. But you just compare silver spoon to like blood money, and even though silver spoon's very good, blood money just gives like so much more gold than that. Healing orbs, it's decent if you have upgrades. Risky moves, this one, it's risky, but I like this one personally. This is one of my favorite augments. The way to use this is to play very aggressively at the start of the game. Just level up really fast and try to win streak. Challenger Heart, it's pretty good right now because challengers are good in the meta. Same with Shadow Owl Heart, though Shadow Owl Heart, probably like the other ones, like the Crown and the Crest, are a little bit better. Now we're on into the B tier. These are all fine. By the way, on silvers, it's like pretty much, they're all pretty balanced apart from like maybe 1 to 3 augments. It's like pretty balanced in my opinion. Obviously certain spots favor certain things a little more. For example, like, are you going to take Shadow Owl Heart if you have no Shadow Owls? No, but if you have a lot of them, then obviously it's going to be really good. But in the B tier, let's look for some honorable mentions. Pumping up, it's really good with the Garen strategy. I like this one a lot. You just force Garen with pumping up. Social distancing, pretty good combat augment, really good in stage 4. Latent Forge, I think this one's a bit overrated, but it's still decent nonetheless. Let's look at some other ones. A lot of these you want to take in the mid game. For example, like Jeweled Lotus, not that good early. Leech, not that good early, but later on it's pretty good. A lot of the trait ones, like whenever you look at some of the best comps on my tier list, for example on the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta, any of the traits that are in the S tier, all of those hearts, all of those souls, all of those crowns, all of those crests, they're gonna be very powerful. So just look at any of these, or if you click on a certain comp we mentioned underneath the picture, like if you have an emblem, it becomes S tier. So just always keep a note of that whenever you're kind of guessing which augments to go for at the start of the game. But let's move back into the augments. We were down into the B tier. So for example, Bastion Heart's gonna be a bit better than Bruiser Heart, but it really depends on what your spot is. Other good late game ones are Harm Assist, Transfusion. If you take them early, they're not that good for win streaking early on, but you kind of just take them. C tier, kind of just re-roll these. Not saying they're always bad, but generally like they're just better things to kind of go for. But one last honorable mention for branching out. This one's either like really good or really bad. It depends on whether you are a player that plays a lot of different things or if you only focus on 1 or 2 comps. So if you play a lot of different things, branching out's really good, but if you don't, then it's pretty bad. So some of these you need to take with like a grain of salt. But let's move on into the gold augments. So gold augments, cut above, great on stage 2 because you get a ton of gold early. If you have any upgraded attack damage unit, so if you have like an upgraded Jhin, if you have an upgraded Tristana, Samira, literally anything, this is auto take, and this is like S++ tier because you get like 1 billion gold and you also get like a good item. You generally want to pivot into either Akshan, Aphelios, or like Zeri later on, but overall very solid. All that shimmers, this got nerfed a bit, but it's still one of the best augments. You still get a ton of gold from it, and you get the extra item. It's kind of like the same as Deathblade, or like a cut above, but probably even better than that. Overcharge Mana Front, still pretty decent. Petricite Shackles, this one jumped up to the top because Demasia's got buffed. Petricite Shackles got like really, really powerful all of a sudden. I think this was in like the B tier before, maybe even the C tier, but it's just incredibly good now. Shadow Owl Crest, this one, gain a Maokai, and you get a Shadow Owl emblem. The emblems on Shadow Owls are so good because like you look at the Shadow Owl comp in the meta snapshot and it says if you have a crest, it becomes S tier. So it's like if you have any sort of decent start for it, just like go for some of those emblems if you see them early. Sentinel Spirit, this is always going to be like one of the best early game augments. You just get so much value at the start of the game, and you get 3 Ionian. So it's like an econ augment and a combat augment all in one, and you kind of get your game plan together so you don't get confused later. So this one's super good if you take it early. Same with Stable Evolution, kind of the same thing. Ravenous Hunter's still decent, not as like super broken as it was before because it did get nerfed, but still pretty solid. Magic Wand, this one comes later. Shurima's Legacy, this one's super broken as well. It got nerfed a little bit, but it's still very solid, especially since Shurimas are actually good now. Star is Born, good for tempo, tons of stats. This one's just generically good. I'd say if you already have an upgraded board, this one's really good to take to kind of win streak with. But yeah, this one's just all around pretty solid. Gifts from the Fallen, same thing. Morning Light, Bastion units are super good right now, so you just go for any of the Bastion comps. So if you have any sort of like half a Rage Blade or something like that for your Aphelios, definitely go for that. Mana Burn, this one, gain a Shroud of Stillness. This one comes later, but they put this back into the game. It's really good. Let's look at some other ones. We're in the A tier. Total Domination, very, very solid. This one you just force Noxus with. Void Crest, go for Void. Void's another one of those comps where it's just really good with the emblems. Glacial Breeze, this one's alright. Celicorn's Blessing, this one, I haven't tried it yet personally, but I've heard and seen that it's pretty good. Tactical Superiority, if you're using any of the 3 trait units to kind of go off, this is really good. And for the Teemo carry players out there, this is going to be the best one to take because Teemo has 3 traits and it's actually like semi-viable now. So I would give it a try. You could probably just force it from there. Idealism, Handed Justice, this one's always pretty good. Any of the ones that give an item are generally really good in the early game. Generally, item augments, super good in stage 2, mediocre stage 3, and then like you take it worst case scenario in stage 4. Because in stage 4, you'd rather have something like tons of stats because your main carries already have 3 items. Getting the extra item, you have to put it on your secondary carry, not going to be as effective as something like tons of stats, which gives a lot of stats to your main carry. Same with like Gifts from the Fallen. So that's kind of like the logic you use between like choosing between item augments versus like the general combat augments. Too Healthy, this one got buffed a bit, pretty solid. Unified Resistance, I pretty much always take this. This one's very solid. I don't really need to re-roll it, or like I use it as like a worst case scenario in a lot of cases. So if you have 3 options, Unified is one of them. Maybe re-roll the other 2 and then see if anything's like that much better, but keep Unified as like kind of a backup plan. Combat Caster, good in any comp that casts a bunch, but even in comps that don't, it's still pretty solid. Long Distance Pals, if you run a 2-unit comp such as Noxus, really, really powerful. Targon Heart, good with Bastion comp right now. Know your enemy. If you know, you can kind of scout around to see what other people are playing and get more value from this, but it's honestly just pretty solid even without that. Let's look at some other ones. Transfusion, we already talked about, same logic there. Parting Gifts, only take this if you have Zizirot Portal and if you have a lot of damage items, because what you do with this is you just build one Zizirot Portal as your only tank item and it just kind of passes along each of your tanks and then you're pretty much set from there. Piltover Heart's really good if you get 3 Piltover right away, but it's like risky to play Piltover. It's like high risk, high reward. Zon Crest, Zon's actually incredible right now. 6 Zon's just completely busted, so definitely like just take that. Portable Forge, it got nerfed a little bit, but it's still decent. It's okay, nothing crazy. It was definitely very powerful before, but now it's just like okay. Contagion, generic combat augment. A lot of the golds, they're all pretty balanced. We're in like deep in the B tier right now, and these are still all very takeable. Patient Study, great for fast 8ing or even fast 9ing. Metabolic, this one's pretty good too, good for loose streaking. Martyr, generic combat. Pandora's items, if your item components completely suck, let's say you have a belt Negatron, and let's go with maybe a tier or something like that. Like, yeah, you could slam Redemption, but Redemption isn't that good in the early game in my opinion. I think it's better as like a third tank item. But in those cases, like whatever comp you're going, or let's say you have like a perfect attack damage comp right now. You have like 2 gunners out and you have a couple tanks for them and you have all magic damage items, then yeah, Pandora's would be pretty good in those situations as well. So only use this if your items actually suck, which means you can't build anything at the start, and then just grab it. Unburdened, it's good if you're like playing vertical comps and only stacking 1 or 2 units. So if you're playing like 6 Challenger or something like that and you're only putting items on Yasuo and Kaisa, it gives a little bit more value to the other units, which is nice. Endurance training, if you're forcing reroll, this one's pretty good because you get the health on your units early on. Escort quest is a little risky but still pretty solid. Healing orbs good. All of these honestly are pretty solid. Let's look at some like standouts, because I think there are like 100 gold augments or something like that. There are a lot of them because we've been scrolling down for a while now. So let me look for some of the like ones that deserve like a really honorable mention, because all of these, like if you just follow the criteria on the right hand side, it's kind of like is pretty simple, you know. So Riftwalk did get nerfed recently. I don't think it's that good. It's definitely mediocre. It was already mediocre before, but they nerfed it again for some reason. I think I mentioned this in the patch notes before. Social distancing, good if you already have like a ton of items later on. Trying to look at some other ones. All natural, this one's really good if you like don't have a lot of items. If you're on like maybe Stillwater Hold, all natural becomes a lot better. Or if you're in like any of the portals that like don't give extra loot or items, this one's really good. And another thing it's really good on is a lot of the bruiser comps right now. All your bruisers have so much health, so you don't really need to itemize them, and this gets a ton of values. For example, if you're playing like reroll Rek'Sai with 6 bruiser, this one's obviously going to be incredible. Let's look at some other ones. Ancient Archives right now is being played a lot because Earth is really popular, but again, this goes along with the branching out augment. Only take this if you actually know what you're doing, so that's why it's kind of in the C tier, because unless you've been practicing Earth, don't just take this on a whim. But if you're playing Earth, definitely like get used to using this, and it could be A, maybe even S tier in those cases. But yeah, after that, like I wouldn't really take any of the C tiers or below, because there's so many gold augments. You're gonna get something better than C tier, right? Like you'd have to get like really unlucky to get some of these, but obviously some of these still have their place. For example, Rich Get Richer. If you're going full lose streak and you can't get a better econ augment, sometimes you just have to take it, and there's really nothing wrong with that. Same with Spoils of War, except the opposite. If you have a fully upgraded board, even though Spoils of War is in the C tier, it's still going to be pretty good because you're going to get a lot of loot, because you're probably going to get a lot of kills when you have a fully upgraded board with a good item. But let's now move on into the Prismatic Augments. So Shadow Owl Crown, Sorcerer Crown, all the crowns, like they're gonna be good because right now a lot of those comps are in the S tier or like the very high A tier. Piltover Soul is incredible too. You just get free Piltover right away as long as you have like one other one. So if you have like Orianna or Vi, you just automatically get Piltover, which is really powerful. And then you just go like full lose streak, cash out maybe stage 3-6 or 4-1, I think is when you want to do it. You always want to wait till your last life, so you have to kind of time it. I was watching one of my friends play yesterday, and he had 25 life on stage 3-5. That's a round after the stage 3 carousel, and so you have 2 more fights left until the neutral rounds, and he lost 13 health in the first fight, bringing him down to 12 health, and then the fight after that he lost 11 life. So obviously that puts him at 1 life, and he could have died in the last fight, but if you scout really carefully and really guess really well on how your team's going to do against certain opponents, you can time it so that you live on your last life and like don't risk dying. So eventually what happened is the next turn on stage 4-1, after the neutral rounds, he leveled up to level 8, rolled all the way down to 0, hit like a pretty solid team, cashed out, had a 40 power T hex, and just won the game off of that. There's a really delicate balance between going 1st and 8th, obviously, but if you time that last death and really play for maximizing the value of the T hex, that's going to be the best way to kind of play this. You don't like stabilize at maybe like 20 life or something like that, because your T-Hex just won't have enough power at that point in the game. Unless you're like a god at lose streaking and only lost by 1 unit every turn, which is pretty much impossible with Piltover. You definitely want to play towards your very last life with this. It's definitely high risk, high reward, not for everyone, but very powerful if you get it. A lot of these are kind of the same as the other ones. For example, Cybernetic Bulk's the same as the ones before, Ascension's the same as the other Ascensions. Transfusion is the same as the other transfusion. Bastion, really good right now because Bastions are really good. Freaky Friday, I love this one personally. You just get 2 Ornn items. It's really nice. Most Prismatic Augments, they give 2 regular items, and Ornn items are considered kind of 1.5 items, and Radiant items are considered 2 items. So getting 2 Ornn items, which is kind of like having 3 items, 1.5 plus 1.5 equals 3. Even though it's delayed, I think it's still pretty good because you don't even like lose out on that much value in the beginning because you have like 1.5 versus like 2 items right at the start. So yeah, you're not gonna perfect win streak or anything, but I think in stage 3, it really powers up. Really powerful. Cruel Pack, probably one of the more fun augments. Definitely want to pre-level to level 7 if you win your first round. So right as you get this, level up to level 6 and put out as strong as a board as you can. And if you win that first round, pre-level all the way to level 7. So level up right before the level 7 threshold, you'll be 2 XP until you hit it. And then you're able to hit level 7 on the next turn and get a higher cost shop. And that snowballs the game really hard because you can get a lot of 4 cost units that way. A lot of these other ones, March of Progress, it's only good if you do like 3 cost reroll. It got nerfed a bunch, but whatever. Let's look at some of the other ones. Tiniest Titan, this one's really good if you're lose streaking. If you ever have like Piltover start, this one is amazing. If you have Tiniest Titans plus Piltover, I think you pretty much win the game on stage 2. Starter Kit, really good for tempo. It really depends on your playstyle. Built Different 3 is pretty good. You get like overall decent value from it. You're not going to win a lot of games, so you could get like 4th or 3rd. And if you like get some good legendaries, maybe even a 2nd. And if you get lucky, maybe even a 1st, you know? Caretaker's Chosen, this one's a Bard one. This one's pretty interesting to play. I don't really like it that much, but it's like decent if you are kind of used to that play style. Let's look at some of the other ones. Final Reserves, this one's really fun, but obviously this one you're not going to get on stage 2. This one is offered on stage 3, I believe. And yeah, you just go to level 9, roll down. It's really wild. Spectral Supplies, this used to be called Parting Gifts, but I haven't actually seen it. I think they removed it from the game, even though they only said they renamed it, but I haven't seen it. So if anyone knows more info on that, let me know. I checked some of the data sites and this augment doesn't even exist. So I'm guessing they removed it by accident. Gotta Go Fast, this one's really good with Garen, but that one comes later. Let's look at some of these other ones here. One of the very overrated ones is Deadeye Crown. I feel like Deadeye Emblem doesn't have a great user until you hit like legendaries. So I don't actually like Deadeye Crown, even though Deadeyes themselves are a very good comp. Another thing is, all the Deadeyes are pretty good. So you have Aphelios as a main carry, Akshan's pretty good secondary carry, Ashe is there for Freljord, and Urgot, he's a beast. So like, you don't really need the crown, but if you could get to 6 Deadeye, it's really nice. But if you just have one of the Deadeye plus ones, I don't think it's actually that great. Pumping Up, pretty good if you're forcing any sort of attack speed comp. A lot of people are playing Master Yi for Garen, as we've been discussing, but one thing you could do with Pumping Up is also go for any of the attack speed comp builds. So that includes Kai'Sa, Azir, Zeri, Aphelios, Tristana. There's too many to name right now because a lot of them like attack speed, and even though you're going Garen and you're building items for Garen, you could always pivot out of Garen into some of those other builds because they could share a lot of the same items that he uses. I've done this in a couple of my games, and it's really nice in those cases where you just don't hit any Garens. By the way, there's going to be like a really long Garen video coming out. I believe I'll post it on Monday, which is tomorrow, because I think I'm posting this on Sunday, so definitely look out for that if you're interested. Endless Horde, they changed this one a little bit. I think it's still pretty decent. It's not going to win you any games, but you'll get like a bunch of top 4s pretty easily because you just overpower people right as you get it. Just make sure you don't take this on any portal that gives a lot of items, because obviously you can only hold so many items, so only take it on portals that don't give any extras. Overwhelming Force, I mean, if you need the items, you need the items. A lot of these that give 2 items, you don't really want them because they're a lot weaker, and sometimes you run into the issue of having like too many items. So only take this if you like really need it for like a best in slot for your carry. Seeing Double, pretty bad. I don't know why this is even in the game. Pandora's Items, this one's good if you're good at playing like semi-flexibly, because sometimes the Radiant item that you get is really bad, but sometimes it's good, in which case it's like, I think it's pretty good. I think this one's actually like decently high skill cap, because even though you get perfect items, your Radiant item, you either have to use it or just lose a lot of health. It's not quite use it or lose it, but you either use it or lose health. So it's kind of risky, but I definitely kind of like that play style. But that's going to be pretty much it for the legendaries. Birthday Present, this is the only other weird one, I think. This one's alright. Good for like top 4ing, but you kind of have to know how to play flex, and you're kind of putting your faith in Mort Dog to give you a good birthday present, because every time you level up, you get a random one, and sometimes they synergize perfectly with your team, sometimes they don't, and sometimes you could get really bad ones. I had a game of birthday present recently on my stream, twitch.tv/bunnymuffinslol, where we took birthday present, and I think we got good ones on levels 4 and 6. But then everything after that, the level 7 birthday present, the level 8 one, and the level 9 one, I got the worst ones possible. Like, I looked at all the list of the units that I possibly could have gotten, and I think I got the worst one 3 times in a row, and that really just ruined my game, and there wasn't really anything I could kind of do about it. And even though I was like, I think 90 HP in stage 4 or something like that, I think I ended up placing like 7th or something like that, because the champions I got just like couldn't do anything. So that was kind of funny there. But other ones in Prismatic that are kind of worth looking at, Double Trouble, I think it got nerfed too much. So unless you have like perfect Talia start, I wouldn't really consider that. But yeah, that pretty much sums up the Prismatic Augments. So with the Prismatic Augments, I would reroll aggressively, because there's definitely a big power spike between the good prismatic ones versus the bad ones. And yeah, not as important in gold or silver. I think silver's like pretty much very balanced. Gold, obviously, this one you just have to tailor it more for your team, but the prismatic ones, they're either good or they're not, so there's that. But yeah, hopefully this guide helps you in choosing your early game augments. This might be the last one I update for the set, because the set is coming kind of to an end, and unless I do any major changes, or if like people really ask for this, then I'll keep doing it. But yeah, tier list will keep being updated every single Friday until the end of the set, and we have the Garen video coming out tomorrow, so definitely excited for that, and I hope to see you all there.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.